Welcome to another Microsoft Flight Simulator video, where today we're going to be looking at some of the things that don't really look 100% right. Starting off with, for some reason the update screen is actually saying welcome, set your experience, when of course already I have done that on installation. Hopefully that's something they will improve in one of the upcoming updates. So let's start off here in Melbourne. We're taking off from Essendon Airport, which I've heard there is a taxiway which is a bit bumpy. I haven't encountered it myself because I've just taken off the runway, but I have encountered similar at Melbourne Airport, where you do find the plane is probably bumping around a bit more than it should. So let's go and find the first very most interesting object. Oh, there it is. It's the Fawkner Tower. Now, not something you would probably want to find in the middle of the suburbs, especially near an airport. 212-story tower. Why is this around, you ask? It turns out that Flight Simulator is using OpenStreetMap data, and this height was actually put in by mistake into OpenStreetMap. It does create quite an interesting view. You do wonder when it will actually be removed from the game and the correct building height will be put in that building in Fawkner. Now another odd thing is, why are the houses on CityLink? That, among some other weird glitches with the road and traffic system, makes it quite an interesting looking landscape. For example, I do see cars driving down the wrong way on a one-way road. And of course bridges, you get these weird road textures going over the actual road. Another disappointing thing is, of course, because Melbourne doesn't have any photogrammetry, you don't actually get the CityLink cheese sticks, or even some of the other aspects of the Melbourne CBD, including where is the Westgate Bridge. I actually don't know the reason why. One, I actually got lost trying to find it, but two, it actually is underwater. Compared to the Balti Bridge, which actually just looks like a normal bridge. So one thing with the Docklands is, even though buildings are in the right spot, probably slightly different designs to what they're meant to be, you do get a few oddities, including a very flat Melbourne star. So moving back into the city, let's have a look at Queen Vic Market. Now, the market looks almost right because most of it actually is just a satellite imagery, but some of the sheds actually have turned into a building, and of course the shape of some of the buildings around isn't that accurate. Meanwhile, Flagstaff Gardens looks pretty good. Moving back into the Docklands, the Docklands Stadium, aka Marvel Stadium, it's a bit weird looking because you do get the satellite imagery as well as what looks like apartments built around it. Well, Southern Cross Station is completely flat. The game doesn't even know how to work out what's going on there. Which begs the question, what's going on with the whole Melbourne Park precinct? Because some aspects look almost right, while the MCG has turned into this giant apartment building, and Amy Park is just a flat pancake. Probably the oddest thing that I've seen is here at Richmond Station, where the cars are actually driving over the station. Somehow the road texture hasn't worked out that the cars actually should be driving underneath. So going into the city now, where Eureka Tower, well, it's a tower, but it definitely doesn't look right, and maybe the wrong height still as well. But Fed Square, on the other hand, yeah, random looking bunch of buildings, but definitely not the abstractness apart from the roof of where the transit bar is. And Flinders Street Station is, as well as St. Paul's Cathedral, a pancake. So one thing you get with the South Bank area is some of the pedestrian bridges have gone underwater. This seems to be a common sight in the sim, but at least Hamer Hall looks almost accurate, even though the Art Centre doesn't have its spire and the Yacht Club's buildings look slightly different. Now what's completely different is what's happened to the Port Melbourne wharf. So for some reason it's gone underwater, but also, strangely enough, the cars are driving over the water, where I'm pretty sure this far out they would have stopped, but hey, the water looks pretty anyway, so that's actually one of the nice things about the game, that there's some very nice water textures. So now flying into Canberra, where you do have the photogrammetry to the most part. There are some areas where you get something weird like what's happening with this bridge, but even with the photogrammetry you also get a few issues, like the rabbit at Russell offices has somehow turned into just a spike. So flying into the city, which again would look pretty accurate, we head to Black Mountain Tower, which from a distance looks pretty much how it should. Get up close though, and this is probably more due to the settings I was on at the time, thanks to NVIDIA optimizing my settings to put buildings to low. It took a while for Black Mountain Tower to come into view, but then it ended up looking pretty nice and pretty accurate. And I probably disrupted a lot of communications by flying right nearby. Canberra Stadium also looked pretty accurate, although again sometimes objects look a bit flat. Now as we enter into the parliamentary precinct here in Canberra, we fly over the National Museum of Australia, which again the photogrammetry has rendered pretty well, with the skateboard style ramp actually almost completely accurate to how it looks, apart from some weird glitches around the floor. Moving on to closer to Commonwealth Avenue Bridge, and we have a major issue with the road. I think an earthquake may have happened there. It's hard to say what's happened, but you do seem to get those issues where roads join up like that. But hey, Old Parliament House and New Parliament House both look quite nice due to the photogrammetry. And finally, Canberra Airport has this weird issue with some of the air bridges, which I'll tell you in a sec why it's like that. But also, the building, it's kind of correct, but they've modelled the airport slightly differently to what appears on the photogrammetry, which, as you can see from Bing Maps, actually has still some of the old airport terminal, which is why some of the air bridges look quite odd. Moving into Perth, and we'll start off with a pancake version of the Optus Stadium. Not surprisingly, it looks like that imagery may have been taken still while there was a bit of construction happening, but they also have this issue where the road has gone into the water. So somehow a bridge hasn't appeared here, even though there's actually a bridge texture also here. Unlike this spot here where there's actually no bridge showing and cars are just somehow magically flying over water. We also get objects going into the water and another flat part of Perth, the Elizabeth Quay district. So finally, we'll finish this trip around parts of Australia by looking at a very slightly different look of the Sydney skyline, with a very flat central station, and something seems to be missing. It's not the Opera House because they've actually modelled it pretty well, but the Sydney Harbour Bridge isn't actually in game. Some videos I've watched say that the Harbour Bridge isn't there due to copyright. It may have also just been harder for them to render in, but either way, it looks weird having the Sydney Opera House without the Sydney Harbour Bridge. So even with all these glitches, it's still quite enjoyable to fly around in the sim, taking in some of the really nice visual aspects like water reflections, the sun glaring off the plane's windows, and so much more. Thanks for watching.